Give us a half-season review on Tom Brady in the booth.
Well, I would say he's all right. Average, mid, somewhere in the middle. He's doing some things that I like. Like, I think he's examining the quarterback play pretty well. But I would also just like him to be a little bit more brutally honest. And it's hard to be authentic. You guys know, speaking every day into the radio, like, it's not easy to do. Brady's not used to it. It's a new task, it's a new role for him. I just think he's got to be a little bit more brutal when it comes to breaking down plays, breaking down offenses, breaking down what he sees instead of being Tony Romo 2.0, because it felt like week one, he was trying to be himself a little bit and people got mad. And then all of a sudden, week two, he just pulled out oh, look at that play. Like, no, we don't want to hear that, bro.
I see. I disagree. I get it with Romo especially. Like, it seems like at times it's a bit, it's a bit phony. It's a bit much. I don't get that sense with Brady though, because again, what made him the best quarterback of all time? It was how much he loved the game. Like, clearly this guy just loves football
I
so
guess.
much that I don't have an issue when he gets excited over a play. Is there a guy right now that you look at as, and we were just talking about Greg Olson, who do you look at right now as being like the golden standard of analysis, color commentary guys?
Man, that is tough. I actually don't know if I have one, to be honest. Not one that I think really stands out. I think that Collinsworth, like, a lot of people don't like him, but I've always found him really entertaining. I don't think everything he says is accurate, but he's just really fun to listen to, I guess. So that would be maybe my take.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm a Baldy guy, Brian Baldinger. I think he's great. His breakdowns on Twitter.
Okay.
He's a guy. He shows love to players, but it doesn't come off as corny. So, but there's so many great guys out there. Olsen. There's a lot of great guys. Let's get into some of the results from yesterday, and why don't we start with maybe the game of the day in Pittsburgh and Washington, right down to the end. Russ is cooking again. The Washington offense puts up 27 points on the number one defense in the league, but it isn't enough. I guess let's start with Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I guess Mike Tomlin too. How impressive, is this Mike Tomlin's most impressive coaching job that he's ever done?
I don't think so. I mean, this guy has coached Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph, and the list goes on, man. Kenny Pickett, even, when we look back at it, he's taken some of these teams with no-name quarterbacks and TJ Watt going down to like 9 wins. I don't even know how that's possible sometimes, the way that he's done that. I think this is actually genuinely a talented Steeler team, and I think he actually has more help at the coaching level because he has Arthur Smith offensively now. You're talking about Matt Canada before. Arthur Smith is a former great coordinator with the Titans, helped Vrabel get to an AFC championship. He was a head coach in the NFL for a reason. Like, that's helped the offense drastically. They've got a receiver in Pickens. They've got multiple running backs. It's a young offensive line. It's a dominant defense, especially the front seven. They've got a lot of talent in Pittsburgh. I think this is the best Pittsburgh team in like 4 years, like since Ben retired, probably. It's the best Steeler team we've seen. I'm not saying they're a Super Bowl contender, but I think in terms of the teams he's had to deal with in recent history, I don't think this is super impressive, but he's an excellent coach.
Yeah, no, great week for Russell Wilson. He's now more rumors now for candidacy for his $42 million franchise tag, and apparently he's going to have baby number 5. So good for Russell Wilson. Good for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And quick, though, yes or no on this. Are they winning this division, or are the Ravens going to catch up here?
I think the Ravens are just the better team. I could see the Steelers beating them next week, though. They play next week. The Steelers, I think they play in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh usually always beats them in Pittsburgh. They kind of know how to play against Lamar, and given the state of the Ravens secondary and their overall pass defense, I could see Russ making some plays there. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers held the edge into next week and continued the edge down the road. But I do see the Ravens as more of a Super Bowl contender and the better team. Their offense, the Ravens, has just been unbelievable. It's hard to keep up with.
Yeah, a lot of critical divisional matchups between a number of those teams coming down to the wire at the last stretch of the regular season. Do want to ask you about the New York Jets. People were drinking the Kool-Aid, should we say, after the primetime win over the Texans. And yet they get trounced, just absolutely demolished by none other than our good buddy over here, Mr. Jacob Goldback's Cardinals. And it wasn't just a beatdown, it was a huge beatdown. What do you make of this Jets team? Obviously, Saleh fired, turmoil within the coaching staff, turmoil and lots of, just drama surrounding, of course, none other than their QB, Aaron Rodgers. The defense had looked good for large parts of the season, but yet it seems like when one thing crumbles, everything is crumbling right now for this Jets franchise, front office, all the way down to the roster. Talk to me about what the rest of this season is going to look for this New York Jets team.
The rest of the season is not going to look great, Brandon, at all. This team is awful, sir. This team stinks. And they did it to themselves. The crazy thing is, I think if you had a grown adult running this operation and you had actual coaches running this team, I think they wouldn't be bad. I don't think Rodgers is completely washed. I think he's somewhere between Aaron Rodgers and washed. Probably manageable. He's definitely not a top 12 quarterback in the league, but I don't think he's awful. You can win with him. I think his choice to be this quarterback that all of a sudden throws 40 times a game because he's running the offense, and all they do is they run the Mike McCarthy 2011 offense, and they run slants and fade balls the entire game, and then they occasionally give the ball to their all-pro running back. It's an interesting formula offensively. They have no offensive coaching whatsoever because Rodgers is completely at the helm of everything. He's also the general manager, apparently. The defense was supposed to be the 85 Bears and the 2000 Ravens combined, but they're nowhere close. Can't stop the run, haven't been able to all season since week 1. And their pass rush is definitely taking a hit. Their secondary, I feel like, not playing up to standard. And Saleh has a huge reason for that. I mean, he was their best coach. As much as I didn't think he was a great head coach, I don't think he is a great head coach. You look at that staff, there's no one else that's competent on the entire coaching staff. Like, they're all a bunch of jabronis. So,
yeah, and you look at the talent that's across the board, right? Because you mentioned the defense. They've got guys everywhere. Quinnen Williams, Hassan Reddick, I know he hasn't been active all year, but C.J. Mosley, who's also been dealing with some injuries, DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner, like they've got guys there, and yet you've got Trey McBride, who's just running wild through them and making Sauce Gardner look like a peewee football player. Like the team has just given up, and I'm with you. I don't think Saleh was the best head coach, but he was certainly a guy who knew how to at least control as much as you can control a locker room, especially with Aaron Rodgers basically running the ship. How much, if any, do you view this era, and I know it's kind of weird to call it an era because it's basically just been 1 year due to the injury last year, but do you view this Jets era for Aaron Rodgers as tarnishing his legacy at all?
Not for me. Like, from a player standpoint, I don't think I'll really remember this that much, to be honest, if we're being honest. I don't think we'll be sitting when he gets inducted in the Hall of Fame and being like, well, this is the reason that Aaron Rodgers is the 7th greatest quarterback of all time, because he went to the Jets and he got out of control ego and he wasn't good, instead of being the 4th best quarterback of all time. Like, I think he kind of is what he is. Like, could he have had an opportunity here with the Jets to add another playoff appearance or potentially a Super Bowl run if everything went well? And I just don't think he's managed that well. I thought he looked at it, he said, oh, Tom Brady did it, I can do it too. And he tried to achieve the same thing. It's not that easy. But, Rodgers to me will always be a great quarterback. I just think from maybe a leadership standpoint, it's just been what it's been his entire career. I just think his ego is a little big. He doesn't really know how to relate to his peers at times. And it feels like that kind of filtered into the entire Jets organization, where he got so much control from the owner that they fired their head coach because it felt like Aaron Rodgers wanted Devontae Adams on the team and he wanted full control. Like, that's kind of what it feels like to me, to be honest. I don't know. I'm just throwing a take out there, but yeah, I don't think it's going to tarnish him. I just think it's going to be he didn't ever live up to maybe what people would have hoped his career would have been, which is a lot of his entire career.
We're chatting with Mitch Milani here on The Swing, and Mitch, from one tough situation in New York to another in Chicago, a Bears team that just suffered their second consecutive, you could argue third consecutive with how, with the Tyreek Stevenson Hail Mary situation, but for sure score-wise, two straight pretty pathetic losses, losing 19-3 to a bad New England Patriot. No offense, Mitch, a bad New England Patriots football team. How much of it in Chicago is coaching? How much of it is Matt Eberflus? And what do they have to do to right the ship?
First of all, Jacob, when the Patriots, do they play in Arizona or New England?
Oh, man. I think it's in New England.
So when Kyler Murray walks into frigid, cold New England and
it's in Arizona. It's in Arizona.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
wrong.
never mind. When Drake May puts on a show in Arizona in the desert, you're going to be thinking twice. Anyways, so that's besides the point. But the Chicago Bears are a disaster, as you brought up, and I think it's a variety of things. I think, first of all, the infrastructure of the team. So we just brought up frigid New England. We brought up Arizona, the desert, which is a dome, I believe. They both play in their environment. Chicago plays in Chicago, first of all, okay? Not great temperature, not great weather, windy, cold. The offensive line is terrible. They can't block, they can't run the ball consistently. Their D-line now, they got shredded by the Cardinals on the ground. They couldn't stop the run. And so they've put their money. They put their money in receivers, they put their money in linebackers, put their money in corners. They didn't put their money in O-line and even D-line outside of Montez Sweat. So that's first and foremost. Infrastructure building of the team is a little bit flawed. Secondly, you've got the coach. Matt Eberflus, solid defensive coach. I think overall he's proven that Chicago has a good defense most of the time, and that's fine. But the offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, stinks. He was terrible in Seattle. He was terrible with Russell Wilson. I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba laughed at the idea of him being the offensive coordinator of Chicago. I didn't even know how many plays they ran against the Patriots where I was like, what are they doing? They were trying to move the pocket. He got sacked 9 times. And then you have to talk about Caleb Williams, where he's just bad right now. I don't know if he'll be bad his entire career. I know that he had high expectations. But on the field right now, he is bad. He's missing guys wide open to move the chains. He's just spraying the ball. He has no deep ball whatsoever. Can't hit anybody down the field. He holds on the ball way too long. I mean, it wasn't even close on Sunday who was the better prospect and better player at quarterback. It was Drake May, 100%. And he's dealing with no receivers and a bad offensive line himself. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of problems in Chicago. It starts with the infrastructure, the general manager, it goes to the coach, then it goes to the quarterback and how he's playing, and all of it is bad.
Mitch, I want to go to arguably the hottest team in the league right now. It was another great game, maybe not the greatest game of Sunday, but it was definitely up there. The Sunday nighter was nothing short of interesting. 26-23, the Lions pull it off, regardless of Jared Goff, who has looked like an MVP candidate and obviously still is, regardless of last night's game. But 5 interceptions is quite a lot in a single football game to give up, and yet your team still pulls off the victory. This team is 8-1, and they've probably not played this poor since that loss against Tampa Bay all that weeks ago. How much of a threat is Detroit towards Kansas City if these two are to get into the Super Bowl and meet up together? Who would you end up taking?
I think right now Detroit looks to be the better team. They're more dominant in their wins. That they have the more explosive offense. I would say the Chiefs have the better defense. The Chiefs have the championship experience. The Lions did beat the Chiefs last year, first game of the year, just throwing that out there. But you talk about the Lions, and I like the way they're playing because they're showcasing that they can win in a variety of ways. Last week, I believe it was last week, they beat the Packers in Green Bay in a like a rainy game. It was wet. They had to run the ball, right? So they did that on the road against a good rival in their division. Then this week, they're down by a bunch of points against an impressive Texans team, even without Nico Collins and Will Anderson. Still a talented team in their house on Sunday Night Football, and they were able to come back and dominate an entire half. So they've shown they can come back. They've shown they can dominate from in front. They've shown that they can win in ugly weather. They're showing championship football, which is winning in a variety of ways, winning by offense. Their defense is the reason they won that comeback because they were able to keep them in the game. And they were ultimately able to force some turnovers and get back in it, like Carlton Davis with those 2 interceptions. So I would say the Lions are a threat for the Super Bowl because there's no team with a better offensive line. There's no team that runs the ball better than them. There's no team that understands what their identity is better than them, including the Chiefs. So they are flawed. They can be beat, the Lions, but I think that they're as big of a favorite, as good as anybody in the league right now.
Incredible that they're doing this also without their number 1 pass rusher, Aiden Hutchinson, which is
for sure.
Yeah,
incredible.
But they just went and they've got Zadarius Smith to help fill the need.
Yeah,
so credit to the front office.
Great front office.
Exactly, they're doing the things they need to do to ensure they're a winning team. Mitch Milani, host of the Bottom Line View on YouTube. Mitch, before we let you go, just got to ask. We got some great games coming up. A great Thursday night game, Eagles Commanders. What a game that should be. Ravens Steelers you mentioned, and then of course Bills Chiefs. What kind of stuff are you working on the YouTube channel ahead of this exciting Week 11, and where can fans find you for more?
Yeah, so I actually have had 2 live streams on Bleacher Report today. I just ranked my top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, how they've been playing this year. I also covered pretenders, contenders so far this NFL season. Both of those will be on YouTube, The Bottom Line View. You'll find all my streams, all my picks, all my bets, everything in between, live streams. I'm super pumped for Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. That's going to be great. Steelers versus Ravens, black and blue is always fantastic as well. This is going to be a big week in the NFL. Can't wait.
Really quickly, was Kyler in your top 10? I need to know.
Kyler was number 7.
I love that. I love that.
I think the second time I've ever ranked Kyler in my top 10.
He's been playing like it, though. I mean, He balled out against the Jets. Absolutely balled out.
Yeah. Absolutely. He's been MVP quality for sure.
That is Mitch Milani, host of the Bottom Line View on YouTube. Mitch, thanks again for doing this and looking forward to hopefully doing it again in the next couple weeks.
Thanks, guys.